and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on another fantastic episode of House of Alpha Week, Black Men Vote webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, we're excited that you're joining us. I am Joe Paul. I proudly serve the organization as the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer. Now, 113 years ago, our beloved fraternity was founded on an Ivy League campus in 1906. Now, what's incredible about this is not that we were founded in 1906, and not that we were founded on an Ivy League campus, but we were founded by college brothers. And what's incredible about that is that same blood continues to flow today. With this webinar, our goal is to make sure we highlight our college brothers, the leadership that comes from our collegiate ranks. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to our Southern Regional Assistant Vice President. This is special because I serve as Assistant Regional Vice President for the South as well. And so I want to introduce Brother Kingsley Wakori. Brother Wakori is a Fall 18 initiative of the Gamma Upsilon chapter seated at Tougaloo College, where he is a senior computer science major, Jackson Hart Study Scholar, and an NAACP member. Upon graduation, Brother Wakori aspires to further his studies in pursuit of a master's degree in health informatics. Brother Wakori, we're so excited that you're able to join us, and we thank you for your leadership. Are you ready to run the show, my brother?
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Fantastic.
Yes, I am ready.
I know you are, because you're an alpha man. You were born ready. So, brother, you have the floor. Have a great show, and shout out to our college brothers, 06.
Thank you, good brother Paul. Well, I have the pleasure of introducing the other AVPs. I want to start with my brother Asante Day from the Western region. How you doing, brother Asante?
Doing very good. How about yourself, Brother Corey?
I'm doing good, brother.
It's a pleasure to see you, good AVP. Any news? What's the deal?
Well, good brother, go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are.
Well, good evening, brothers. My apologies for the way I'm dressed, but unfortunately I'm headed to class right now and I can't stay too long. But my name is Brother Asante Day. I'm a Fall 2019 initiate into the Mu chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, seated at the wonderful Arizona State University Polytechnic campus. And I'm a major in aeronautical management technology, professional flight, with a minor in Mandarin Chinese. So thank you very much, Brother Corey. And unfortunately, I do have to go to class right now, and it's a pleasure to see you, brothers. 06.
06, good brother. Thank you. Now, moving on, we want to introduce good brother Travis Nelson from the Eastern region.
How you doing, my brother?
How you doing?
I'm good. It's great to be here today.
That's good. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, brothers, I won't take up too much time. My name is Brother Travis Nelson. I'm a spring 2018 initiate of ADA, the Jewel chapter, seated at Columbia University, City College of New York, John Jay College, and Hunter College. I'm a dual degree student at Columbia University, pursuing my bachelor's in political science and now my master's of public administration. And I am proud to be now the two-term sitting Eastern Region Assistant Vice President, serving the proud brothers of the Eastern Region, because we all know Alpha East forever, first of all, leading the way.
Thank you, good brother. Now, moving on, we want to move on to Brother Anthony Rucker from the mighty Midwest region.
Greetings, my brother. How are you?
Greetings, good brother. How are you? I'm doing good.
Doing well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to my brothers all around the globe. I bid you greetings from the mighty Midwestern region of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. My name is Brother AJ Rucker. I'm the Midwestern Regional Assistant Vice President, and I'm also a Spring 19 Initiate and President of the New Road chapter, seated here at DePaul University in Chicago. To my fellow brothers of the Board of Directors, Brother Ward, Brother Paul, fellow brother Assistant Vice Presidents, thank you, Brother Corey. Happy House of Alpha Week. I'm just incredibly proud of our collegiate members of this great fraternity, and I know that by the end of this call, so will you. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, we develop leaders, and the Black Men Vote Initiative is one of critical importance during this 2020 election cycle. And so I'm so proud of the leadership of our collegiate brothers who are just leading the charge in an effort to empower our electorate to march to the polls to perform their civic duty, to vote. So with that, I'll let these brothers continue to shine. Please enjoy and thank you.
Thank you, good brother. Moving on, we want to have Brother Christian Coleman from the Western region.
Good brother, how you doing?
How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm good. I can't complain.
That's good. Well, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Brother Christian Coleman. I serve as the 63rd Southwestern Regional Assistant Vice President. I'm a fall 2018 initiate of the Zeta Sigma chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I'm humbly recognized as a student vice president on my campus, as well as a Newman Civic Engagement Scholar. I'm a major in international business and minor in finance, and hope to be in finance one day. I'm honored to serve the fraternity, to serve my region, the Southwest. We know how the Southwest comes, so we just let that be known. But I'm honored to serve this year, and I look forward to working with everyone.
All right. Well, thank you, good brother AVPs. It's always good to hear from you. Moving on, we want to go ahead and introduce the panelists. Now, I'm excited and ecstatic to go ahead and get on with this panel, and I'm excited to hear what these good brothers have to talk about. So I want to go ahead and start with Brother Jacory Daniels. Brother Jacory Daniels is a spring 2019 initiate of the Delta Phi chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, seated at Jackson State University Incorporated. Seated at Jackson State University. Brother Daniels, a senior biology major from Hazelhurst, Mississippi, serves as Jackson State's 75th student body president. How you doing, Brother Daniels?
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing?
Pretty good. Glad to have you, Brother Daniels.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad to be on here as well.
All right, moving on. We have Brother Tyler Frazier. Brother Tyler Frazier, a spring 2019 initiate, serves as the vice president of the New Road chapter at DePaul University, where he is a senior studying secondary education social science. The Chicago native also serves one of the fraternity's assistant district directors, aspires to deconstruct institutional mechanisms of oppression that impact students of color by advocating for youth issues and modernizing equity policy in the Chicago Public School District. He wishes to provide positive portrayals of men of color so that youth can have exposure to outcomes other than those stigmatized by current media. How you doing, Brother Frazier?
I'm doing well. Happy to be alive. Can't complain. Thank you for that.
That's good, brother. Glad to hear from you, brother. Glad to have you on the panel today, brother.
Thank you. Happy to engage.
All right, moving on. We have Brother Ahmad Jones. Brother Ahmad Jones, a fall 2019 Mu Eta initiate at Arizona State University, is a junior majoring in sports business. He aspires to become a sports agent that can help Black athletes get the representation that they need, but also be looked at as more than just an athlete. Okay. I'm seeing we having a few technical difficulties. We'll come back to him. Moving on to Brother Bruce Wilson. Brother Bruce Wilson, a spring 2019 Gamma Iota initiate at Hampton University, where he studies political science and economics. The Chicago, Illinois native has been recognized as a presidential scholar by Hampton University, a scholar with the Institute for Responsible Citizenship, a White House HBCU competitiveness scholar, and a venture partner for Next Gen Venture Partners. Brother Wilson also serves as a member of Hampton University's Board of Trustees. How you doing, today, Brother Wilson?
Awesome. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, brother. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm glad to have you today, brother.
Glad to be here.
That's good. Okay. Now, we want to just go ahead and get right into it, right? So let's get started with some questions. Okay, we have our panelists back with us. Okay, the first question that we want to ask: what are some of the obvious and not so obvious challenges associated with voting and the COVID-19 pandemic?
I guess.
Well, let's start with Brother Wilson.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I'll start. I mean, I'm sure everyone here has some of the same sentiments of what the obvious and non-obvious sentiments are about this election and voting in a health pandemic. But, some of the obvious things are that we are in a health crisis. The coronavirus still exists, and we don't want to endanger ourselves or our loved ones by going out into crowds, not social distancing. And that's a real crisis, especially in the Black community, communities of color, where you have pre-existing health conditions. So that's an obvious.
Thank you for that, Brother Wilson. Let's go to Brother Jones.
Yeah, so some of the obvious risks, as Brother Wilson mentioned, obviously health risk, cross contamination at polling locations, and then some of the not so obvious, which I know that we're going to dive in, is talking about voter suppression and how it affects our ability to practice our civic duty. So yeah.
Brother Kevin L. Jones, I'm so sorry. I didn't even introduce you. Brother Kevin Jones, a fall 2019 Pi Phi chapter initiate at Wright State University, serves as the chapter delegate and is studying political science, policing, and investigative studies. The Columbus, Ohio native who graduates this December has already established his own business, KJ Management Firm LLC, published a cookbook and his own cologne line called Token by Kevin Jones. I'm so sorry about that, Brother Jones.
You're all good, brother. You're all good.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to Brother Fraser. I'll ask the question once again. What are some of the obvious and not so obvious challenges associated with voting and the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, likewise, as I already mentioned, some of those obvious challenges are safety. And another one that is to consider is how voter turnout would be with the various institutional mechanisms or barriers that will prevent people to come out to vote, such as, the social distancing or not having ease of access to voting places. So that could be an obvious challenge in finding ways for people to modernize their practices. And an unobvious one, I would say, is how do staff members in these polling places, or how are they able to have accurate counting of ballots? How do we ensure that we are upholding our own proper practices? So those are some thoughts.
Thank you for that, Brother Fraser. Brother Jones.
Me or Brother Kevin Jones?
Yeah, you, Brother Ahmad Jones. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, you're good.
So the question is, I can hear you. The question is, what are some of the obvious and not so obvious challenges associated with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay, I just couldn't hear Brother Kingsley, but it's fine. Did he say me or you?
Yep, Brother Ahmad Jones.
So what are some of the obvious and not so obvious problems that come up with COVID and the voting that's going on right now? For me, the most obvious one obviously would be the fact that it's a national pandemic. And so if you have too many people coming in to the voting polls and things like that, it's just very likely that you can get COVID and things like that. It's a higher risk. And then for the not so obvious matters, sending in votes and online votes, a lot of minorities are working at jobs that they aren't able to work at home from. And so they could be at work, they could have to do things with their kids. They may not have the luxuries that everyone else may have to vote online or mail in their ballot. And so doing that is another way of voter suppression. So it's a lot harder, and it's a not so obvious way that can cause problems in the current election.
Thank you, Brother Jones. Let's move on to the next question. But we'll start with Brother Daniels. Can you hear me, Brother Daniels? Okay.
Hold on, I'm gonna try to.
Okay, can the rest of the brothers hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next question. We'll start with let's start with Brother Jones this time, Brother Kev Jones. How serious of an issue is voter fraud or mail-in voting fraud?
Yeah, so I know that the conversation about voter fraud has come about as we kind of linger towards the November election. And this kind of intertwines into the talk of voter suppression. And so I know here in Ohio, being a swing state, we have some of the most extensive cybersecurity as it pertains to voter fraud. An attempt to kind of combat that. Just today, my family and I received our absentee ballots, which are sent out to every resident in the state of Ohio. And so here in Ohio, we have multiple chains that we have to attack in order to, be able to get our voter registration, get our voting ballots, so then we can kind of combat voter fraud. So I don't think that voter fraud is such an extensive issue as it's being explained. Even our president and our his press secretary in the White House have used mail-in voting at some point for many years, and so the conversation of voter fraud is just another form of voter suppression.
Okay, thank you for that, brother. We'll jump back to Brother Daniels. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear now.
Okay. The question is, how serious of an issue is voter fraud or mail-in voting fraud?
When it comes to voting fraud or mail-in fraud, I feel like just as Brother Jones has said that they make it more of an issue than it really is. I feel like it's a way to try to confuse us as the Black community. And they know that we'll jump to that on an easy frame and say that, oh, well, they're misplacing my vote, so I'm just not going to vote at all. Because they know the mindset that many of us have developed. Not saying that it's the correct way, but it's just from generations on, it's been passed on. They've been taught, well, they're going to manipulate us anyway, or they're going to do this, they're going to do that. So let's just, not do it at all. So they can get comfortable with it, and they get comfortable with the terminology and not actually understanding what it actually is or even how it actually happens.
Thank you for that, Brother Daniels. Brother Wilson, do you have anything that you want to add on?
Yes, thank you, brother. I can add on to that. Similar to what Brother Daniels just reiterated, voting fraud through mail-in ballots is not a worry that we need to be concerned about. Not at all. I'm pretty certain, actually, the Washington Post did a study, may have been in June or July, on 3 states and tracked, if there is potential voting fraud, is there something that we need to be worried about? And the numbers came back and it was 0.0025% over those 3 states. That was the percentage that there will be voter fraud in an election with mail-in ballots. And so, the numbers speak for themselves. It's not an issue that we need to be worried about. And that rhetoric, similar to what previous brothers said, is something that they are using to combat and use as a tool of voter suppression.
Thank you, Brother Wilson. So at this time, I want to say out to the audience, if you guys have any questions that you guys want to submit, go ahead and throw those out there. I'll take a few from the audience at a given point. So just go ahead and put out any question that you might have that you want to ask this talented panel of brothers. All right, but moving on to the next question, I'll start with Brother Jones. What voter engagement activities have you or your chapter been involved in?
So my chapter at Arizona State University, Mu Eta chapter, we plan on having an election night upcoming. And so at that, we're going to teach the students and the people that come about both candidates and things like that, and just give them like ways that they can vote, ways that they can make sure that they're registered to vote if they haven't already registered. And then after that, there'll be a part 2 of the event, and that'll be on election night. And so we'll all get together and we'll watch the results of the election so that we all can just like kind of see how that plays out and like how the full process goes through.
Brother Fraser, I'm asking you the same question. What voter engagement activities have you or your chapter been involved in?
Yeah, thank you, good brother. Some of those engagement include, presence on social media, and our intentional actions of having, dialogue with our community members, and to, let us know that this is an issue, or this is a topic that we should be very passionate about, and we should be sure that we're taking intentional steps to, see the change that we want to have. So having those intentional dialogue, planning on having some sort of election party where we're inviting out members of our university here at DePaul for New Row, and having incentives for folks that want to sign up to vote, want to be engaged, because it matters.
Right. Thank you, brother. Brother Jones, brother Kev Jones.
Yeah, thank you, brother. So there's been a plethora of events that my chapter at Pi Phi have done in order to kind of not just inform collegiate students of the issues that are at hand, because the issues matter and not just the people, but also to engage and mobilize them. And so as the Ohio College lead for Alpha Phi Alpha on the elections committee, we're working to educate, to register, and mobilize. And we're utilizing different platforms such as Reach to kind of get folks informed on the issues and kind of figure out where everyone's heads at as it pertains to registration. And so we've done different virtual events, from information about the issues locally to back when the primary was happening. We had a voter registration drive and rally, something like a Souls to the Polls, and we marched over to our local voting location on campus.
Thank you, brother. Brother Wilson, I'm gonna change the question up a little bit. What have you or your brothers been involved in any of the protests addressing aggressive policing in the African American communities?
Thank you for that question. So yes, brother, the brothers of the Gamma Iota chapter have been very much involved and active in our respective communities here in the Hampton Roads area. Some brothers in DC back in their homes, making sure they're going out to peaceful protests and being symbolic and making sure that they are contributing to what is a present civil rights movement, because what's happening right now is revolutionary. And so the brothers of the chapter have been participating. Fortunately and unfortunately, we are at Hampton University completely remote. And so we are currently on our 5th week of school currently. And so a lot of the brothers in the chapters have not been able to see each other, but going on their individual accord, we have been participating. Myself, I just came back from Washington, DC with some of the good brothers and participated in the March on Washington and some peaceful protests during that weekend.
Thank you for that, brother. Brother Daniels.
So yes, recently this summer, we made sure that we participated in the protests that happened in Jackson and the city of Jackson. For the college brothers that weren't able to make it back to Jackson, there were protests in other areas around the United States where they made sure that they were there to stand on the forefront and make sure that they vocalized their rights, and not just there to just to be there or say, hey, I'm here, just be present, but to educate while we're there. Let people know that, hey, it's a way to do this. We don't have to do this violently. Make sure that we know our rights, but at the forefront of everything, we want to make sure we educate where we go. So it's a right way and it's a wrong way, but we want to make sure we do everything in the right way, and it lines up with Alpha.
Thank you, brother Daniels. Okay, we want to go ahead and move on to the next question. You guys go ahead and the audience keep sending in you guys' questions. I see them. We'll get to them in a minute. I'm gonna ask one more of my own questions, and then we'll move on to the audience's questions. Okay. how can we educate voters, specifically African American voters, about their options? I'm going to start with you, Brother Ahmad Jones.
So, I mean, the first thing that you would have to do is just first educate them on why it is important to vote. Because I feel like a lot of people believe that with how the electoral colleges work, especially for people of especially for African American people in Arizona, because Arizona is a red state. So even though we could all vote Democratic, the electoral colleges, like those people, they aren't legally bound to vote what the state represents. And so even though we could win the popular vote as Democratic, the electoral college could still vote Republican. And so it's really important to educate African Americans that even though that is the case, it's still very important for us to get our vote out, make sure that we're heard, because at the end of the day, you have to believe that the electoral college is there for a reason. They're going to represent what their people want. And then the next step would be to educate them about the ways that they can vote, either going to polls and going to polls, online, or mail-in ballots.
Brother Fraser, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, could you repeat the question for me?
Yes. How can we educate voters, specifically African American voters, about their options?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So a part of some of the miscommunication that is the disconnect that happens in our communities is that we don't have access to the resources or the tools or knowledge of those resources. So how do we bridge those gaps to provide knowledge and resources to communities to make educated decisions? So wanting to have your social media presence, wanting to have intentional dialogue and engagement so that we are able to disseminate some of those misconceptions and actually have people be empowered to make those changes.
Okay, thank you for that, Brother Fraser. Brother Jones, would you like to chime in?
I would have to say I agree with my brothers, especially brother Jones. Definitely starting with educating them on the ways that you can vote, educating them on the issues that are at hand, and the importance of voting, and then definitely moving forward and educating them with when those deadlines happen, how these issues affect our community specifically, and how these issues and these different elected officials will affect our communities as it pertains to their initiatives that they have planned, their dollars that they plan to invest into our communities, or in most cases, not invest into our communities.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Brother Jones. We're going to move on to the audience's questions. This question is from Brother Rucker, actually, from the Midwest. What role do you anticipate cynicism will play in the 2020 election? We'll start with Brother Wilson.
Thank you for that question, Brother Rucker, representing the Midwest. I think cynicism will play a major role in the 2020 election. I think it has been playing a role since the last election, and that's something that is definitely lingering in the soul of society right now. It's something that we see being perpetuated day by day with some of the brutality that we're seeing before our eyes on the internet every day. So cynicism is going to play a major role. We just have to make sure we are going to the polls and doing what must be done. So I always say that the light will come through. What is meant to happen will happen, and that the best of us will show up and show out. But cynicism will always be there, and I'm just encouraging everybody to take that call of action and make sure it doesn't play so much of a role where we will be regretting it for another 4 years.
Brother Daniels, would you like to chime in?
Oh, yes, I will. So I feel like it will play a small role, but as far as how much we let it play a role depends on us. And by that I mean, even though we're going through this different crisis, pandemic rather, we still have to continue to educate. We continue have to motivate people. Hey, get out, get outside the house, or send in your absentee ballots. Because a lot of people will say, well, hey, I don't want to get outside because of COVID. Well, you have absentee. Let's educate them by absentee more, because a lot of people hear about it and know about it, but they don't actually know how to actually utilize it. So we teach them how to utilize it and put it into work. I feel like it won't play that much of a role, because now a lot of times that where that mistrust comes in is because they're not properly educated or they've been misconstrued by someone, and now that's what they believe. So we need to get those false beliefs and those false hopes out of their mindset and develop positive ones, and ones that actually will be there where we can actually develop them as leaders and understand what's actually happening.
Thank you for that, Brother Daniels. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next question. This is from Alfred Burst. What universal voter engagement initiatives should be discussed, planned for college members to make sure voter registration continues to increase and voters are educated and actually vote? So I'm going to repeat that question again, just so we break it down a little more. What universal voter engagement initiatives should be discussed for college members to make sure voter registration continues to increase and voters are educated and actually vote? Oh, it's on the screen. Thank you for that. We'll start this question with Brother Fraser.
Yeah, thank you for that, good brother. So when it comes to initiatives or being intentional and planning for college members, I think it's very important that we are communicating the necessities in a language that is that our communities and our individuals can comprehend, to be able to put forth that as a change. So some initiatives that we continue to engage with and continue to use the uplift in our own communities is, like, once again, social media and platforms as such.
Thank you for that response, good brother. Brother Kev Jones, would you like to chime in on that question?
The question had went away. Could you read it for me one more time, please?
Is it possible to get the question on the screen one more time? Yeah, thank you. What universal voter engagement initiative should be discussed, planned for college members to make sure, 1, voter registration continues to increase, and 2, voters are educated and actually vote?
I think that a big issue when it comes to college engagement with voter registration and voter knowledge is that we don't really take the time to break down the same to break down like events and informationals about voting issues that we do for, let's say, a non-cultural organization. How can we interact with a college student about something that may not be so interesting to him or her that we can when we're talking about hosting a cookout or something of that sort? So how can we, as Brother Fraser said, kind of meet the college students in the middle and have those conversations with them about not just the significance of voting, but that people before us literally died so that we could have this civic right, so we can literally be able to choose who's in power making these decisions for us and for generations to come. And so I think that what's big is really tackling the idea of dissecting the language that we use in order to increase engagement, increase registration, and show them that there's an authentic benefit and their civic duty to vote.
Thank you for that, Brother Jones. We'll go ahead and move to the next question. So we'll start with Brother Ahmad Jones. This is from Brother Dominique Beaumont. How can college brothers learn about their voting rights if they are out of state and away from home for college?
Well, I mean, one of the great things about technology now is that we have things like this, or we have Zoom. And so that's where all of our events are on. So at ASU, all in-person events got canceled when the school year started. We still have in-person classes, but mostly it's like everything's on Zoom. And so all events are just going to be on Zoom. And so you just send out the links to as many people as you know. And then one thing that me and all my LBs do is we go around and we try to meet as many young Black freshmen as we can, as many young Black students, as many Black students in general as we can, because it's just really important for us to build those relationships, because ASU is a PWI. There's not a lot of Black people on campus. And because of that, the few that are don't even really know where to find the other Black people. And so we love to get to know them, get their information, get their social, so we can give them these events. Because at the end of the day, even if it is an event that doesn't interest them, what interests them is that it's a lot of other Black people that they can meet. And so you're creating that kind of family relationship, and you're building up them all together. And they may not at first be interested, but when they see that there's a lot of other Black people going, they're more likely to come to the event. And then in coming to the event, they're not just going to sit there and talk to their friends. They tend to listen. And because of that, they learn about the processes of voting and how important voting is.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother, for that. Brother Fraser, do you have anything that you want to say?
Yeah, thank you for passing along. And if I can piggyback on that thought a bit, when we are engaging with our communities and like freshmen or other youth on our campuses, we think about your programming. We think about what is our institution or university doing. Also, what support or programs are they having to ensure that students are educated. And for us as Alpha Men on campus, being able to advocate for our university to have these programs or services and utilize some of those networking capitals to do so.
Thank you, Brother Fraser. Next question I'll ask for Brother Jacor Daniels. Let's see. Let me find a good question here for you. Okay, here we go. What attitudes have you encountered from other Black men about voting?
So as far as attitudes, I get the whole nine, honestly. Because I'm the type of person I like to engage and see where people's views are and understand, where did the mishap happen or where did the disconnect happen to why they feel this way. So with that being said, like I've seen people that are very excited about the election coming up, and then you have some that they're just like kind of disappointed because maybe the people that they wanted didn't make it past the Democratic nominations. So it kind of makes them feel like, well, I don't want to vote, or I really don't, but maybe I just vote because of this reason right here. And a lot of times, what I like to tell people is when you're voting, it necessarily doesn't always mean the presidential election. A lot of people forget about that because they think, oh, it's just the president. But where a lot of the work happens at is with your district, your people in your district offices, you have your state offices. Like what happens with that? Because you have to realize when you're looking at the electoral college is dependent upon those people that you put in the House and the Senate. They have so many delegates. So when that comes into play, you want to make sure that you're putting the right people in office on the state level before you even, think about what's happening on the national level.
Thank you for that, brother. Brother Kev Jones, do you want to chime in on that question?
Yeah, definitely. So, first off, thank you, Brother Daniels, because you definitely broke that down really well in helping us understand that, a big attitude that, a lot of college students give off, especially young Black men, is the idea of them not being valued in the first place. So why should they participate in, these democratic, these democratic elections and be a part of, the conversation, because they're not going to be heard in the first place. And so the way that I'm able to tackle that most part is talking to them about people who was before us, people who are currently in our offices and in different positions of power, who we look up to, people who, influence them, that they like to follow, and, how, that can affect, not just our, school policies, not just our policies when we're, in our cities, but also substantial of other things such as, organizational engagement for, different institutions that we love and enjoy. Institutions not meaning just, colleges. And so, the way to tackle that, idea of not feeling valued is, really combating it with their own self aspirations and ambition.
Thank you for that, brother. So now this next question is a follow-up to this question. This is for Brother Bruce Wilson. What impact does social media play on this view, and how do you overcome these beliefs and attitudes?
Thank you for that question, brother. Yes, social media, not only on this view and all of the views that, Black men and Black people in general have, because, you know, Black people, we are not a homogeneous group. And so we are very much a vast dichotomy with very much thoughts and beliefs. And so in regards to everyone's different beliefs when it comes to like the upcoming election, social media plays a tremendous role. I know for me personally, I use social media as probably my number one tool when it comes to telling people to get out to vote, educating people like on my campus and my respective communities, trying to get different opinions, similar to what Brother Daniel said, trying to really gauge, you know, and take the temperature of people and understand where is the disconnect and where did it happen. And all of that happens through social media. I mean, and I think now it has been accelerated, obviously being in the midst of a health pandemic with coronavirus going on. We are social distancing. People are still quarantined. Some universities are not going back to campus. Social media is the greatest tool that we have. I think it needs to be emphasized even more. We have to start, you know, doing more things like what we're doing now. That's why this is such a wonderful event. You know, this is a form of social media that we're going to consume. So it plays a huge role into everyone's thoughts and feelings.
Thank you for that, brother. Brother Ahmad Jones, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, I would love to. First off, I would like to thank Brother Wilson for the piece that he put on. Just piggyback off that a little bit. Yeah, like social media is just so important because nowadays everybody just has their phone in their hand. And so it's so easy just to look at Twitter, look at Snapchat, Instagram, whatever you have. And it's just so quick and it's such a simple way to just see it. And I mean, it has both its good sides and its downsides, because obviously the good side is you can promote this kind of stuff, but on the downside, you still get everyone else's opinion and you can't control who they're following. Because I mean, we've seen Donald Trump's tweets saying how like voting in mail or in mail voting is just gonna mess things up. They're gonna be able to fraud. They're gonna fudge the numbers. They're gonna be able to there's gonna be a lot of voter fraud, and there's been tests, and you can look at those as well. But a lot of people only see half of it. That's why for me on my like social media on Twitter, I like to follow just kind of all of it, so I can build the full picture and I can get all sides of the story. And so that's why I feel like it's really important to make sure that we use social media in the correct way, but we also understand the damage that it can do.
Right. Social media is definitely a very powerful platform. Now, I'm going to ask the audience again to keep rolling in those questions. If you have anything that you want to ask these this young, talented panel of brothers, please go ahead and roll those questions in. We're taking all questions. Moving on. Okay. We'll ask these brothers. We'll start with Brother Tyler Fraser. Okay. Yeah. We'll ask this question. How will it affect voting if students are not allowed back to school?
Yeah, thank you for that question. One way that we can think about voting being impacted by this is think about parents. If students or parents who do not have the privilege to be able to afford daycare or some sort of sitter to or take off of work, to be able to see their child, they may not be able to go in and vote and have that opportunity. So we have to consider what barriers are we creating that creates that.
Thank you, Brother Fraser. Let's go to Brother Daniels.
So with that, it was pretty much like answered or mentioned in the last few questions, I believe, when we went back to social media, and not so much also social media, but also we have student emails. And with that, we can always do email blasts. We can get them little tips. We can do the virtual platform in which at Jackson State, we're on all virtual platform right now. So what that means is everything we do is on a virtual standpoint. We have some classes that are in person, but majority of the gist is virtual. So we just have to keep pushing and make sure that it's engaging as well, because we don't want to have anything that kind of bores the students. We want to make sure they actually know what's actually going on.
And that's a great way to put it. Now, Brother Bruce Wilson, we have a question from the general president, and he wants to know, and I think everybody can kind of take a stab at this, but I want to hear from you, brother Bruce Wilson, as we get Brother Noah Corey in. Brother Bruce Wilson, what do you think about the documented engagement of foreign governments in our elections?
Thank you, Brother General President and Brother Joe Paul, for that question. I think that is something that needs to be addressed. That is a super relevant question. It's something that is a danger to our democracy, I truly believe. I think it's something that we actually do not talk about, how serious foreign interference is and how real it is. You know, we have records that this has happened. We have proof that there is tampering on numerous social media platforms that we know, Facebook, Twitter. It's something that we have to address as a country. It needs to be very high on the agenda list in regards to our defense, our security, homeland security. This is something that we need to talk about as a country. And I know there are a lot of things that we are experiencing right now, being that, you know, we are in an economic crisis, we are in a health crisis, and we are in a time of high racial tensions. It's a lot to not think about. But however, we are coming up on what will be a historic election in 2020, and it's not brought up enough. So I think we need to find a way to make sure that conversation is being brought to the ears and on the tables of those who can make some of those decisions and move forward.
Thank you for that, Brother Wilson. Brother Frazier, what do you think about the documented engagement of foreign governments in American elections?
Thank you for the question. It amazes me how we can have documentation and all the proof of tampering and different fishy things happening. However, we still lack the urgency to update and modernize systems so that these type of things do not happen, or we are not compromising the truth or compromising how people are actually voting in the country. And I believe that it should be very on the top end of our administrations and other administrations' continuing agenda to ensure that that safety and security is there, and people have the confidence to know that something will not interfere or tamper with their the outcome of our elections.
Thank you for that, Brother Fraser. The next question we'll ask Brother Kev Jones. This is a question from the audience from Kent Stillwell. There are a lot of brothers and sisters that could care less about politics. You young brothers have to stay strong. How do you change the minds of the young people to get them to change?
Thank you for that question. So I am a political science major, and I take pride in being able to engage and find authentic interests in the political process. And so in my ability to, maneuver different roles on campus, I've had the opportunity to, connect, engagement in the political process to, social excitement. And so one thing that I like to do is kind of bring in those different people running for selected offices locally to kind of talk about their platform, as well as, have incentivized, conversations with different individuals, specifically young Black men, about how the political process can affect them. And so I know that a lot of times with us college students, we don't want to be a part of something unless we're getting something out of it. And then a lot of times people do not want to do anything unless they feel like they're a part of the conversation. And so I try to get a lot of our young students on campus, incoming freshmen, to, some of us seasoned folks who still just don't have a total interest in the political process, by telling them how they benefit, but also letting them be a part of it, giving them some opportunities to experience the political process in different roles on campus, or engaging with outside partners to our organizations.
Thank you for that, Brother Jones. I'm going to ask, does any panel member want to chime in on this question?
I'd like to chime in.
Okay.
I feel like one of the best ways that we can do this is through Project Alpha, because I know at least in Arizona, one thing that the schools don't really do is educate about voting. And Project Alpha is such a great way to get in touch with just young Black Americans and just young Black students in general. And so it's one of my favorite of the national programs because I love working with younger kids. I was a basketball coach for like K through third, and I've worked with kids at Escalante from like it's from 6 to 18. So I really enjoy working with kids. And so Project Alpha has just always been one of my favorites, but it's a great way to like get in touch with the kids, and you have such an influence over them because you come in as just someone that's doing it all. They're in college, they're getting the grades, they joined, one of the greatest fraternities, and they're at the top of the game right now. So you have such a high influence over the kids. You're such a role model to them. And if you start to tell them about voting and how important that it is, then they start to really listen to you. And then they start to like pay attention a little bit more as they get older to the elections. They start to like really look at like who's there. They pay attention to more than just the presidential election. And so you really just start to have that kind of influence over them. So I feel like if there is some way that we can incorporate a voteless people as a hopeless people into Project Alpha, I feel like that would really benefit to help increase voter registration and just the interaction, the participation of Black men and Black women in votes or in elections.
Thank you for that, brother. Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which will be for Brother Daniels. What has Alpha meant in your development as a leader?
So as far as my development as a leader, coming into Alpha, I feel like I was a leader beforehand, but if anything, it opened my mind and taught me that you can never put a ceiling on what you can accomplish in life. Like really, like because I see it every day. Like with you all guys, I personally know Kingsley, and I knew him before he was in Alpha, and like in Alpha, it's just like it takes you to the forefront. Like we lead at the forefront, and it lets you feel like you can accomplish anything. Before I became Alpha, as far as SGA president, I never thought I was like, okay, well, I did this and did this. I never thought the SGA president on my list, but I had my line brothers. I had people in Alpha behind me saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. And look where I am now. I never thought I would have been here, but without the help of my fraternal brothers in Alpha, who knows? I still would have been great, but it just pushes you above everyone else. And it just makes you that role model that everyone wants to be like. And I feel like when that happens, it's just like you can show them the right way, but you just have to make sure that you're cognitive of what you're doing so that you won't lead others in the wrong way. So it definitely puts you at the spotlight. But the real question is, can you keep it up, and can you be able to, train someone else to be just like you or be better than you?
Thank you for that, Brother Daniels. Does anybody else want to chime in on this question?
Yes, I can chime in, brother.
Go ahead, Brother Wilson.
Thank you. Let me first say that, Brother Daniels, I think you articulated that very well. I tell people all the time that Alpha is the gift that keeps on giving, and it definitely enhances, I believe, who you are as a person. Alpha is an amazing experience. It is honestly something that is invaluable. At the end of the day, Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is a organization where you get to be around like-minded individuals, men trying to pursue things beyond themselves. Iron sharpens iron, and that is what constantly happens in my day-to-day being around members of the fraternity.
Thank you for that, brother. One more panelist want to chime in on this question? Any volunteers, or sure? Well, we'll just go ahead and move on to the next question. How about that? So let's discuss our viewpoint regarding the misrepresentation and the negative political commentary associated with Black Lives Matter. We'll start. Okay. Well, we'll start with Brother Fraser. Thank you for that.
Oh, no, thank you. Sorry about that. I think this is a very interesting question, and that oftentimes you see, the negative portrayals or the conceptions that the media portrays on this movement, and a lot of people try to associate it with people being us as African Americans being selfish, us, supporting the black agenda, and us wanting to just consistently kind of be of a nag, when the reality is not that. When the reality is us want to continue to have equitable outcomes and equitable outcomes and equitable opportunities to succeed in our own regard. So it's very much so we're demanding the rights that we necessarily deserve and we want, and that we want those equal opportunities.
Thank you for that, brother. Brother Wilson, would you like to chime in?
Thank you for pitching it this way. So this is a very dynamic question. I'm discussing the viewpoint that we see and the misinterpretation of Black Lives Matter, because there are multiple organizations out there pitching Black Lives Matter, using this as slogans, and there's also the official organization that is Black Lives Matter. And we see a lot of media portrayal that is going on amongst us. You go on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and you can see the same video talked about in 3 different lights. The misrepresentation is very obvious. I think that's why it's important for everyone who is engaged and has the privilege to make sure they are using their discretion. Make sure you are filtering out from the media, because we are consumed by a lot of information. I know myself, I get news updates every day about different things that the president done, different things that are coming up in Congress, in the House, different elections. And you have to be very cautious and aware about what you're consuming to make sure that misrepresentation and what is being construed in the media isn't tampering with your mindset or those around you. And so that's what I encourage everyone to do.
Thank you for that, Brother Wilson. Brother Kev Jones, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I can. Thank you, Brother Wilson, for that. And so, as mentioned, the perception of Black Lives Matter has shifted from a movement and a stride for equity, equality, and diversity to a fear and terror organization and structure. And so, how we can, dismantle that ideology is redirecting the focus on what Black Lives Matter started from, what Black Lives Matter means to not just us, but then also to the vast majority, and having our desires when it pertains to Black Lives Matter be authentically positive, and have real change behind it.
Thank you for that, brother. Next, we'll move on to Brother Ahmad Jones, and we'll ask the question: have you, your LBs or chapter brothers, thought about signing up as poll workers, or do you see an increase in participation?
So me and my LBs, we've talked about it, and we've expressed interest in signing up as poll workers, because with everything that's going on with COVID, typically it's a lot of older people or veterans that are working at polls, and because they are high risk, it will make more sense for younger people like us to come to the polls and help out. And then, so that's why we all expressed an interest in it. One thing that we haven't fully figured out yet is exactly where to sign up for that. So we'll look into that a little bit more so that we can be a part of that. But I feel like if they see a lot of people that they know at the polls, because if we're going to the polls to do work there, we're obviously going to post it on our social media. And that will help. I feel that if that will help influence a lot of the people that we follow to be like, oh, they're at the polls. At the very least, I can go say what's up to them. And so they might come by, and then we be like, hey, man, since you're here, are you registered to vote? And if they are, then obviously we get them into a place where they can vote. If not, we have a nice conversation with them. We express to them the importance of voting, and then hopefully they're registered to vote for the next upcoming election. But I feel like it's just important to show that as Black men in college and just as Black men in general, we are genuinely interested in voting and the importance of voting, because they're going to see people like them that are doing this kind of stuff. And they're going to wonder, okay, maybe everything that people are saying about it isn't true. Maybe my vote does matter, things like that. So I feel like it's just really important for us to just show that interest and be a part of the process of the election.
Thank you, Brother Jones. Brother Daniels, would you like to chime in?
Most definitely, most definitely. So with this, with being a poll worker, the first thing and foremost, yes, my LBs and chapter brothers, we have signed up before, and worked as poll workers, and it was a very good experience. I will say that I learned a lot. We got to socialize with people. We met different people in the community, so it was actually reaching out. Oh, well, hey, we're the Alphas at Jackson State. We do this and do that. We would like to reach back in the community. If there's any way that we can properly educate you upon voting outside of this for next year's and years to come, then that's fine and great. And we'll look for ways to implement that. So I learned it really helped as a learning experience. But one of the big things you want to make sure when poll workers, you want to make sure that you're registered in that county to be a poll worker. So you have to be registered to vote in that county to be a poll worker. So if you're not, then it's not like, hey, I can just go up and sign up and be a poll worker. But Brother Jones, if you would, you might want to check out your county clerk, the county clerk office, and I'm pretty sure they can help or lead you in the right direction to make sure that you can sign up as a poll worker. And one of the things, I had a meeting just before this, and we were talking about things as far as voting with the election commissioner. And they were saying that we could actually do volunteer hours if they didn't want to get paid. It can be volunteer hours for our students on campus, because we do have a volunteer hour policy where we have to have so many volunteer hours to graduate. So we've been looking and diving into different ways to, you know, educate upon voting, actually be in a working field with voting, and just all of it. So yeah, most definitely.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Brother Daniels. Brother Kev Jones, the next question is for you, and that is, through our national program, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, we register tens of thousands of people every year. What are you and your chapter doing to get people to go vote?
All right. Yeah, thank you for that question. So I know my chapter, Pi Phi, at Wright State University, we plan to have a voter registration drive because a lot of students, as if they're not on campus or they've never been on campus before, their polling location changes, and so they'll have to get people re-registered to vote. And then so outside of that, we're collaborating with our Student Government Association to bring in, those who are running for political office, kind of talk about, their platform, and then register folks to vote at that moment. At the end of the last academic year, we had our first annual Black History Month celebration. And so we had voter registration there as well. So we've been focusing this entire time around voter registration. And so our next step is definitely engagement and mobilization as we, continue to move forward. And we've obviously also worked on educating about the issues happening locally. I know a big issue, a big election is in our time in the city of Dayton is we have the first African American woman planning to unseat, a representative that has held that office for at least 10 years. And so, we're really helping to push not just registration, but educating them on who she is, who other electeds are that are running inside of the county and inside of the city as well. And so we've been really focusing on registering at some of our big scale events.
Thank you, Brother Jones. Brother Daniels, would you like to chime in on the question? I'll repeat it again. Okay. Through our national program, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, we register tens of thousands of people every year. What are you and your chapter doing to get people to go vote?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So with that, everyone pretty much knows that campus is not up to 100%. So really, the biggest thing we can do is, since we can't have events virtually, and we want to make sure we get our hands out in there, we reach back into the community. We can't just forget about that. We're in Jackson, so it's a plethora of people that we can go out to, community, schools, and go out and just make sure we educate them, let them know that, hey, we can get out and vote, especially with high school seniors. We have a great majority of high schools in this local area around this school. So we want to make sure that we reach back into the high schools. We can do voting drives just by getting them to drive up in their cars, and we can hand out the voting forms and registration forms to get them to go out and vote. And that's an effective way of actually going out and doing it. So if your chapter, G Up, wanted to collaborate, that would be a great way for us to actually put our hands on in the community.
Thank you, Brother Daniels. Brother Wilson.
Thank you. So yes, I'll start with actually pre COVID-19, the Brothers of the Gamma Iota chapter were very involved. We had numerous events scheduled for some of the Democratic debates we had lined up. We're going to have watch parties for those coming up. We had partnered with Next Gen America, a not-for-profit voter registration organization that we did a lot of community service with, registering people to vote, handing out literature and flyers about the importance, people in the Hampton Roads area who are on the ballot, obviously information on the presidential nominees at the time. And so now, in the midst of COVID-19, we are still sending a lot of links out. We just recently had a planning meeting to talk about what we're going to do in regards to staying on course with our initiatives, making sure we have some political action lined up. But everything is going to be virtual for the most part. That is the safest thing to do right now. It's what we are getting equipped to do. And the best thing is to use our tools, which are social media, which is just sending out text messages and calling, using the brothers in the fraternity to even reach out to different campuses, because this is really a collective effort. This is not exclusive to anyone. Nothing that is happening is at the moment. So that's something that we have really been doing, making sure that the voices are heard by the masses.
Thank you for that, Brother Wilson. Brother Frazier? Well, I'm going to go ahead and repeat the question one more time just so you can hear it one more time. Through our national program, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, we register tens of thousands of people every year. What are you and your chapter doing to get people to go vote?
Yeah, thank you for that. And something that other brothers have mentioned with universities is our challenge to have in-person or engagement due to the restrictions of COVID-19. However, pre-COVID, something that New World DePaul University was doing is we will schedule lots of times where if we are 9 classes at a time, maybe we can host an event where we're sitting in the rotunda, sitting in common areas, and capturing students as they walk by. Hey, sign up to vote. Let's get you engaged. Let's get you plugged in, because these are issues that matter. And we want to make this process as easy as possible and accessible as possible. And there is a challenge of having that physical engagement currently in our current situation. However, these challenges allow us to be creative to find new ways of getting the same outcomes that we want, which will hence become social media and our engagement with that.
Thank you, Brother Frazier. And lastly, Brother Ahmad Jones.
So my chapter, the Mu chapter, we didn't have anybody on campus up until fall 19. So we didn't really have a lot of pre-COVID stuff. But if we were on campus for the spring, we were going to host an event where they would learn about both the Republican and Democratic parties so that they could make their decision on which one they wanted to be a part of, where their beliefs lied. And then we were going to have a voter registration at that event. And so because COVID happened, we weren't really able to host that, because the main reason why we wanted to have that event was for the voter registration. And you can do it online, but it's a lot more difficult to do that online. So what we ended up doing is we decided to wait until the actual election so we could host an election night where they learn about both candidates. And then at that point in time, the people that are there are hopefully already registered to vote. And then they can go and place their votes based on the information that we've given them. And then at the election night, we would they would watch it. And then there'd be another voter registration there where the people that haven't signed up but are paying attention to the election, trying to see who got elected, they can sign up and be registered to vote.
Thank you for that, Brother Jones. Thank you, panelists. It's been a pleasure to moderate this amazing panel. Everything that you said has been just so amazing, and I hope everybody in the audience takes everything that's been said and really lets what these gentlemen have said manifest and really resonate with you. Next, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite our General President, Dr. Everett B. Ward, to address the panel.
Thank you so much, Brother Kinsley, for your outstanding work as the moderator. My good brothers, good afternoon and good evening, I should say. Thank you for an outstanding presentation tonight. You know, we in this great fraternity, scholarship, leadership, and service was truly exemplified tonight through your scholarly presentations and your in-depth review and analytical presentations on the issues around voting, your campuses, and the general state of affairs of this nation. I know the audience, along with the brotherhood, joins me in congratulating you. But what I gained from this discussion tonight was that we've got the right leaders in the right place at the right time. And I was so proud when I heard, and if you don't mind, I'd like to just share some of the quotes that I heard, and that is uplift our community, Brother Frazier. I heard you say that frequently. Educate the community on their civic duty. Brother Kevin Jones, you spoke about that constantly in our presentation. And then to Brother Ahmad Jones, you talked about creating that sense of family on the campus and how Black students needed to be together to understand the collaborations that they have together. And then once again, Brother Jones, you talked about how too often Black men feel that they are not valued in this process. But after listening to you tonight, I'm sure everyone understands that. And then also the authentic interest in the political process was said. But then, Brother Wilson, you said something that I shall always remember. The best of us will show up and show out. And that's what we're going to do on this election. And I'm confident that all of you will do that. So, brothers, thank you for your leadership. Thank you, because this is one of the most important elections that we have, but all elections are important. And politics and political and civic engagement happens 365 days of the year. And I am so honored to have been with you tonight, to hear your strategic planning, to hear your keen knowledge of the issues, and then to understand how you have the ability to think analytically and to interpret political propaganda from the true facts in the process. So I say to all of you, keep leading onward and upward always. And we as a nation and as a world are in great hands because we have a generation of leaders on university campuses like you that will guide and lead this nation and this world for many generations to come. Thank you again. This was an outstanding presentation. And now we got to go to work and implement all the strategies and methodologies that you laid out tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing you do so many great things. And again, on behalf of a grateful brotherhood, we thank you for your presentations tonight. And to our assistant vice presidents who are also with us, thank you for your leadership and thank you for what you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first from our General President, Dr. Everett B. Ward, and our Assistant Vice President, Brother Kingsley Nwakori. On behalf of all the Assistant Vice Presidents who were able to join us and our esteemed panel guests, we say thank you for your support, for making sure that Alpha Phi Alpha stays at the top, and we are the head and not the tail. I'm Joe Paul, representing Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. On behalf of our 200,000 college and alumni brothers from across the world, we say thank you. And we want to say a special thank you to everyone who's tuning in during House of Alpha Week. Remember, if you're not following us on social media, you absolutely should, at APA 1906 Network. Good night.